my kitchen. I'm Clara. I'm 91 years old. Today we are making meals from the Depression.
All right, folks, we're live on the live stream, and this one's a really exciting one for me. I've been looking forward to it for weeks now. As you saw there, that was Clara from Clara's Kitchen from the YouTube channel, Great Depression Cooking. And we're going to be speaking with the producer and the director and the filmer of that, Chris Cannucciari, who is the one that put all that together. And I'm super excited about this. If you're not already subscribed to Great Depression Cooking, make sure that you subscribe. Clara started her YouTube channel in her 90s and featured a lot of great stories and recipes from the Great Depression, and kind of became kind of a virtual grandma for all of us. And we're going to be speaking with her grandson, Chris, who is now doing a lot of directing and all sorts of cool things. We're going to talk about some of the stuff from the filming of Great Depression Cooking. We're going to talk about the book. We're going to talk about some of the things that is going on now with Chris's life as far as the recipes and gardening, and also some of the works that he's doing as far as producing things like banking on Bitcoin and some AI stuff. So all sorts of cool things in this one. So without further ado, let's bring on Chris on the live stream. And here we go. There, I pressed the right button. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. Yes. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on this. I kind of took a long shot and said, I wonder if Christopher would actually come on and talk with me. And so I took a stab at it, and you responded, and now we're talking. So
we're all here stuck at home.
Yeah.
Tell stories and chat. And this is great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And folks, make sure I have links in the description box for the book, Clara's Kitchen. I did a video of this last summer, and that's when I first actually learned about your Nana, Clara, and I was just totally fascinated with her and with her story and the recipes and the gardening and everything. And I've really built a lot of my preparedness stuff based off of her teachings. And she's been gone for several years now, kind of like my grandma. And I've always been inspired by what you did for her, because I'm a fellow grandson myself, and I wish I would have done what you did, and I wish more people did. And you've been able to share your grandma to millions of people around the world now, and that are all inspired by it. So again, I just want, first off, I wanted to thank you for doing that. So
I'm glad. It's been the response has been tremendous over the years, and it's been really great hearing from other people, that they've been inspired to film their grandparents. That was my goal, and I'm glad that idea has been spreading, and people are preserving these recipes and these stories that would otherwise be just internal to your small family unit. But now the world can see what it was like to cook in the Great Depression, or to cook in Puerto Rico in the 1930s, or wherever. And if we were a small part of that, I'm very proud of being
for that. And when we were talking earlier, I mentioned how my grandma is Puerto Rican, and before she passed, I went and said, Mama, teach me, or Mama Rosa, teach me your recipes. And so I spent multiple days doing that, but I never thought about filming it or anything like that. And now they're just all memories with me. We don't have these videos. And so it's just so awesome of what you've done. And there's books now and fan clubs of Clara and all sorts of things. It's really, I thought maybe to kind of kick things off, I was kind of curious on just the whole history of Great Depression cooking. What made you want to start doing it and documenting it, and then how it built up from there into a multi-million view and subscriber channel?
Yeah, I mean, it started very small. She's my grandmother. It was just me and her cooking, and me begging her over the years to film her in some way, preserving these stories. She was, as you've seen in the video, she's very opinionated. She speaks her mind. There's no filter. But I kept persisting. Thankfully, she lived to a ripe old age of into her 90s when we started filming, and she sort of mellowed out to the idea. She knew I went to film school. And it was her wish. She's Italian. I don't know if this is common knowledge or not, but Italian grandmothers start dying as soon as they have grandkids. They start saying,
Oh, I didn't know that.
and she said that my whole life, so I started to take it to heart. I said, no, this could be your last year, Nana, what are we going to do? We have to preserve these memories. And she said, well, I want my funeral is going to be soon. This is when she's 88. She still had years. My funeral's coming soon, and I want a picture of when I was young and beautiful, and one I'm not beautiful anymore, but it looks good. Can you take that picture? And I said, sure, I'll take that picture, but let me film the poor man's meal. And she agreed. I took a nice picture of her, and what you see is what we got from that Great Depression cooking. Poor man's meal was the first thing we filmed, and she was magic on camera. I saw it right away, and I think she had fun. When she was a child, in her teens, she wanted to be an actress, but it was the Great Depression. She had threadbare clothes. She the most she got was acting at school. But I think that camera brought out a part of her that had been dormant for so many years. She'd always been a storyteller, but I think she just commanded a presence on camera, and I'm glad she did. And I think a lot of other people are happy that she did, because she's brought a lot of joy to a lot of people.
Yeah, totally. One of the things we were talking earlier, as far as if I would have put a camera in front of my grandma, she wouldn't have. She wasn't a natural, I don't think, in that kind of presence. So I was kind of curious on the background with Clara, if she had that kind of background because she's just a natural YouTuber starting off at the.
There was no YouTuber when we started.
Yeah. And you really started the channel kind of like at the early stages of YouTube too, when there were.
It was like I said, it's cave paintings back then. It was like everybody's so good at it now. Back then, I'm not saying that we were great. I'm just saying nobody was even trying anything. Now you look at like channels like yours and so many others. They're just really great production value. I was attracted to YouTube as a filmmaker. My wife and I, right after we got married, we went to Iceland, and there wasn't anything on Iceland, and I think this was like 2005. So I brought my camera and I filmed and I put it on YouTube, and we had like 100,000 views. This is very early YouTube. And I was like, if I'd made this for a film festival, how many people would this reach? 3,000 people, 4,000? I just reached 1,000 people. And that got me thinking about, could there be a show on something like YouTube? And that's why we started it. And I took it serious. I made a theme song and an animation, which there wasn't anything like that at the time that I was aware of, other than like Chocolate Rain. And we just kind of like had fun with it. Nana too, we like collaborated, and it was just good fun. Who knows if anyone's going to watch this? And here we are.
Well, we're all, I'm speaking on behalf of everyone, we're all really glad that you decided to do that. So I think because your Nana really helped me get through 2020 during, on parallel times. And when you started the channel, it seemed like at the height of like the 2008, 2009 recession type period where there was some uncertainty there.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of repeating a little bit 10 years later. Was that kind of something that you had in mind starting into it, as far as, hey, we're coming up to, there's kind of a recession going on in the U.S. My Nana has experience with the Great Depression.
Yeah, well, growing up with Nana, I was very aware of the Great Depression.
Yeah.
Life. But not only that, it wasn't just the bad parts of the Depression. It was the good lessons from the Great Depression. It was being thrifty, appreciating what you had. All these things that you tell your kids, but she would tell us so often that they actually did stick.
Yeah.
And that's really nice. Yeah. Nana got me through 2020, and my family. She's just, she's still with us.
I hope you don't mind me putting some of these great comments, because they're just coming in. So.
Yeah, this is it's very touching. So growing up with these Great Depression lessons, it wasn't about the Great Recession. I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking, these are great stories. These are great meals. I would ask for the poor man's meal. you can't tell that to your friends when you're a teenager or, younger. But I would love to eat these, Great Depression meals because she was a great cook. And, they were just so wholesome and hearty. So we actually, when we came out, it was in 2007. There wasn't a recession yet. Everybody was, no one could have thought of a recession. And it was mostly people like yourself, preppers, who were responding to the videos, people who had that like end of world shelter, or that's to the extreme, but even, just like people who are thrifty were attracted to it. And it was great. I felt like that was a really nice thing, but absolutely the recession got people Googling what was the Great Depression like. And that drew people to the show. And that's really when it started to take off.
Yeah, and I was hoping to talk a little bit more as we go on for this, as far as some of the gardening things, because now I look at dandelions completely different, where I don't want them sprayed with any kind of chemicals. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
Claire said that those make good salad. So, and I see a lot of dandelion comments coming in
Yeah,
there as well.
She had a lot of great, I guess, like found foods that we got around to filming. Burdock was something she would prepare 8 different ways, and I have burdock growing in my backyard because it's the only thing that doesn't die easily. And it's great. You can do so much with it, and people are finding all these homeopathic benefits from it now. So yeah, she was very much, she came from a Sicilian family right off the boat, and they had this old world knowledge, and they took what ingredients they had and what ingredients they could find and turned them into really great meals. And that just, it speaks to what makes a good cook. It's not just, having the best ingredients. It's having a really good sense of what are your ingredients and how do you maximize them.
Now, when you were working with Nana then on the filming of this, did you already know all the recipes at that point, or were you learning those as you were filming?
I knew the ones that I would eat, and I knew the ones that she preferred to eat.
Yeah.
She didn't like the poor man's meal every day. She liked a lot of the ones that ultimately made, the video panna cotta was one of her favorite, which is just stale bread with hot water. And, she would eat that almost, a few times a week. So I was aware of them. But then when we started to really think about, okay, we filmed 2 or 3, what else is there? What did your mom make? And she said, oh, that's it. We only had 4 recipes. And I was like, that's not possible. You didn't. And so we just started like bantering back and forth. If you had eggs from your chicken, what would you make? If you had vegetables from the garden, what vegetables would you make? And that kind of spawned into these, and it like brought back all these memories, and not just memories, but stories about, how they used to farm in their backyard and how they had chickens in the basement in the winter, all these like really cute, great stories. And it really brought her back to that place, and it was pretty magical when that was happening.
I had someone was asking a question earlier with the subscribers, out of the book or just in general, what was Clara's favorite recipe and what's your favorite recipe?
I don't know. What was her favorite recipe? I mean, coffee. That was her
coffee.
Yeah. That woman, I put out that coffee thing. We just kind of filmed it as a joke this last year, and she loved coffee, and we bonded. I would probably be 6'4" if not for with my grandmother. I'm 5'10".
Because I'm 6'4", so
yeah, you shouldn't have. A word of warning: don't start drinking coffee when you're 12 with your grandmother. And she loved coffee, but food-wise, I don't know. The poor man's meal was like the grandkids' favorite, so we'd always get that and the the egg drop soup. She loved that one. She loved lentils. We made lentils for the episode, and those are really really great and really healthy. I don't think they get the credit they deserve. All these superfoods come out, but lentils just don't seem to make the cut. But they're incredibly high in protein and healthy and cheap. They're great. So she loved lentils. And then she was a fantastic Italian chef. She could make a spaghetti bolognese like, you wouldn't believe. So that was one of my favorites too, but that didn't really quite fit in with the poor man's meal. It's an expensive meal.
And I found that the poor man's meal is, it's, I think a lot of hikers and backpackers have been using the poor man's meal, probably because of the videos. Then it's
Oh, cool.
so they bring a potato and some onions with them and hot dogs. And
That's something that's so good, you know.
yeah, that's our personal favorite. And the pasta and peas is also another one that we really like. So.
Yeah, that's a favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I don't seem to be able to make it as well as how your Nana did on the video, but I'm working on it.
And that's one of the reasons I made the video, is like, well, if nobody watches this, at least I don't have to call her and bug her every time I'm trying to make the poor man's meal. I'll have it in front of me. I can just go to YouTube. I can, pull it up, and I still do. When this past weekend I was making the poor man's meal for my family, and I brought up the video just to be like, when do you put the water in so it doesn't the pan? I still get it wrong, but it's a work. By the time I'm 90, maybe I'll have it.
Awesome. One of the things that I was hoping to get through talking with you is, again, I've been super inspired of what you've done and just how many millions of people you've impacted through documenting your grandma. And I just wanted to kind of talk over, like, how would you encourage someone else to do this with their grandmas? Because it makes me wonder how many other people, grandparents out there that have been through, that are so wise and have so much history and the context that they could bring to modern times, but might be camera shy, or maybe someone doesn't have the inclination to do that. Yeah. How would you make more Chris's like you to be able to document our elders in the same way?
I'd just say be persistent, because as we've seen in 2020, my kids haven't seen their grandparents as often as they should. These years are precious. These years are very precious. I was lucky that my grandmother lived into my 30s. That's not always the case. It's usually not the case. My other grandparents passed on much earlier. I wish I had documented their past too. And it's just this, don't take no for an answer, I guess, and don't force your grandparents into a situation that they don't want to be in, but also, be persistent, say, this is important, find what it is, say, this is for your grandchildren, this is for them to know you. And I think it's important to do that. And, she loved it. She loved, everything that came from those videos, ultimately, when she thought she would hate it. And even if it doesn't become a huge success, that's not why it was important to me. It was important to preserve this for my family. And I think if you have that goal in mind, you can really capture these memories, and it doesn't have to be recipes. I thought about just doing an oral history with her, where you put the camera up and you just talk about the Great Depression. But I remember watching those at the time, and I was like, that's just not interesting. That's not who that person is. That's their memories. What do they do? How do they use their hands? That's important. And that's why I dressed this up as a cooking show. It's really an oral history, but yeah, you're making a meal. So you're not thinking about, this person, how old they are. You're thinking about, this person is alive. They have so much to give. So I would encourage that, find what it is in your grandparents that keeps them young, what gives them that spark. Cooking gave Nana that spark. Coffee did too. But cooking certainly did, and it brought back all these memories of her childhood, how her mom taught her, and I think that was really fantastic. But yeah, I would just say, to answer your question, I know I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I think just be persistent. Tell grandma, tell grandpa, tell your aunts, uncles, and uncles. This is important. This is our family history. Don't worry, we all look silly on camera. It's not a big deal. Look at Clara.
Yeah. Yeah, when watching the videos, the way that she cut the potatoes over the pot is something my grandma did, and I never really realized that she did it until I watched these videos. And my grandma had long been passed, probably for 15 years at the time, and so those little things are things that just instantly brought me back to memories that my little details like that were long forgotten. And we were talking a little earlier as far as by the channel and the videos, part of it's recipes, part of it's the storytelling, which we all appreciate. But you talked about kind of that third aspect of that your grandma really became a virtual grandma for millions of people. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was, I guess, an unintended consequence or happy result.
Benefit, yeah.
We started to get emails from people and physical letters. People sent my Nana got birthday cards. She got quilts. And it was from a lot of people who didn't have a grandmother or didn't have a grandfather. They said, you're my virtual grandma. I listen to you before I go to sleep. Your stories are like the stories I wish I had from my grandparents. And I hadn't really thought about that, but it's, like having people at the time. I tried to convince other people, like, this could make a good TV show. You talk to grandparents, they thought I was silly, but it turns out, there was a whole other audience. And we found them on YouTube of people who really want to hear from elders and want to hear what it was like in their time. And, how did they live? How did they love? How did they do everything? And so, I'm really glad that in some way, the videos could reach beyond the screen. They could, reach into people's hearts and sort of, let them know that they're loved, even if it's, through Nana, she really was a genuine person who had real truths to her life that she spoke to and spoke of and shared with us. And I think that was a really great thing that people have this sort of surrogate grandmother on the internet.
Yeah, it's for me as a viewer that is just learned about your grandma 7 years past when she passed away. It's amazing just how much impact she has on people just instantly. Like I showed the recipe book to my wife, and she saw some of the videos, and then the video that you did when she passed, and my wife was bawling about it. And she just was really impacted by your grandma. So it was, just real special lady. We have some questions coming in. I just want to get some of those.
Really,
and then also,
I just want to
been
trying to catch up here. There's so many beautiful things.
Yeah, there's people are saying, all sorts of great things. There's one from Amy Fresh I wanted to get to. What was a big life lesson that you learned from your Nana that you'd like to share with us?
That I want to share? My father passed away when I was 13, and Nana sort of became my second parent, and I learned so much from her, beyond like Great Depression cooking meals. It's hard to sum up. It's like somebody who's so consummate in your life. What was the one big life lesson? They're all clean up after yourself lessons that were very important. She gave me great parenting advice. Stick to your guns. That's one that turns out to be quite true. Being frugal is really important, especially if you're a filmmaker. You're going to need to be frugal. That's a great life lesson. I'm sure there's a really great answer. I just don't have it I don't have it in my tip of my tongue here.
Yeah.
But, she was a parent to me. She, after my dad died, she took myself and my brother to Italy for the summer and opened my world up to a whole culture that I wouldn't have known. She taught me swear words, in Italian, of course. But she was a great friend, a great teacher, and she was, it's all true. Everything that you see on that show, that channel.
Yeah. A lot of great comments coming in about lentils. People are raving about the lentils. I got the mocha pot because of that's, and and in Puerto Rico they use a similar pot for that, and so which is really cool.
Yeah, there's like a debate that the aluminum is bad.
Yeah.
The aluminum one's cheaper. I don't know. The Italians live a long time, so maybe it's not so bad. They use it all.
People seem to be the Apex. I really want to see my I want my video of my grandma that's watching this. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, do it. Yes. Let's see. I'm trying to look for specific questions. There's a lot of just great comments coming in right now. This is really nice. Thank you for sharing. Let's see. Love her videos. I wanted to talk a little bit about. We were talking beforehand how I've kind of built my garden based off of Nana's recommendations. I did an analysis of every single ingredient that's in here, and And when I go to the grocery store, I'm thinking about, okay, what would Clara have in there? And so, and I've done the same thing with my garden. And last year I failed during 2020. I got into gardening. I failed miserably on because the most common ingredients that I found in here were potatoes and onions, and both of those were just horrible for my garden. You talked about you having a garden too, and you're in the Brooklyn area. Can you talk a little bit about gardening?
I live in Brooklyn, New York. We're blessed to have a backyard. That's a rarity, and I feel like I'm probably not the right person to have that backyard because I'm not good at gardening. I did not learn those lessons well from Nana. She had stopped gardening when she was into her 80s. She did mow her lawn through her up until her 90s.
Wow.
Yeah, she was tough. Yeah, I grow tomatoes just because I love tomatoes. You know, you can do so much. I don't can them, so I'm not great at keeping them like depression style. Potatoes, I find I'm getting much better at. You know, and those, if you get, I have those sacks. Have you seen those? They're like these like 5-gallon like mesh basket sack things, and you just put. It doesn't grow.
Yeah, yeah. For the potatoes, yeah, with a little compartment that you could open them up from the bottom to get them.
Yeah, well, I just like dump it out, and then it's like dumping out treasure. You know, you have to pile out when they're ready. Yeah. Burdock is a great thing. If you can, I wish I had videos on burdock because there's so much you can do with that, and it's so healthy for you. That grows like a weed, so that's very easy to grow. But yeah, I wish my gardening was better. It is important. Grow bags, thank you.
Grow bags, yeah.
Yeah, they're great.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, but my potatoes were just absolutely pathetic last year. Where again, because Claire said potatoes and onions, at least in the recipes, and I had very like walnut-sized potatoes, this year I'm going to get it right this year. So
you get it right.
Okay, it's my.
Actually,
we had a
year. You know, it takes.
And for the tomatoes, another reason why I started doing the cherry tomatoes is because Nana's tomato sauce used the cherry tomatoes for the paste, and then other tomatoes for the. Do you do that the family?
I do. Yeah, I make the tomato paste from time to time. I've got high cholesterol, so I'm a little bit less pasta centric than I used to be. I was very pasta centric, which is why I have high cholesterol. I still make the tomato sauce, maybe instead of every other night, like once every 2 weeks. But yeah, I follow the her recipe.
Yeah, we now always have some tomato sauce ready to go to add a couple spoons into things, and then and then the cheese. I'm spacing on the name of it. But yes, that now every time we go to Costco, I pick up more of that, and it has a really long shelf life. And now it's like our go-to cheese.
And pecorino, you can't really have Parmesan in Rome. That's like a thing. It's a thing, you know. I mean, you can, but pecorino is where it's at there.
Yeah, because we used to do Parmesan, and now we do the pecorino all the time, and that's our go-to when we do it fresh. So.
I prefer it.
Yeah.
It melts.
Yeah, me too. There's a question from Libby here. This when question time comes. From depression time to today, what are the main foods that Miss Clara and family lived off of to make meals out of very little, such as staples kept more than beans and rice?
Yeah, they didn't do too much of the rice just because there was so much pasta in the diet. Lots of bread too. So they lived off of carbs, really, carbs and starches, which, you know, like people say are bad, but I mean, that's if you're eating in excess. They weren't, you know, they were, you know, living frugally. So you're not pigging out on so many potatoes. But yeah, things with starch in them. If you want to stretch things, starch is great. Beans are great. Legumes, lentils, again, are incredibly good. Pasta, you know, is cheap and it stretches. And then, you know, you don't have pasta with sauce every night. You have it with escarole, which is like a green. Have it with Swiss chard, which is another green. So it wasn't just pasta and, you know, sauce. It was pasta with vegetables most often. And then once a week, it was pasta with sauce.
And you mentioned that you have kids. I don't know about did they know your grandma Clara then?
Yeah. My son was just over 2 when she passed, and my daughter was a baby. They're years apart. But you know, my towards the end, things slowed down for Nana. We didn't film anything. We just appreciated every minute we had with her. And her eyes would just light up when she saw my daughter. For instance, my daughter, we have like a lot of boys in the family, and my daughter was the first girl, which meant she got the dollhouse. If you watch the afternoon affairs video. So if my sister's watching this, I'm sorry. But her eyes would just, I have like some photographs of it. They're just beautiful. We framed them. You could see her come back to life, even in her last days when she held my daughter, and it was a very beautiful thing. So, and they know her through the videos. We watch them often. So, mission accomplished, right? That was what Nana and I really wanted the most out of this, was to share this with our my children, her great-grandchildren. So they know her, and that's rare.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, my kids don't remember, at least on my side of the family, they don't remember my grandparents because they were either little babies when they passed, or they were alive even before they were born. Yeah. But that just must be so special to be able to share that with your kids through the videos. And then also, even if you had the videos by themselves and no one else saw it, but let alone where you have millions of people watching them and fan clubs for them and everyone trying out the recipes, it must be pretty cool then to be able to share that in that way.
I mean, it gives me confidence that she will live on much, much longer than just my memories of her. It's one thing for you to dig out some old VHS tape and say like, hey, this is your great Uncle Joe.
Yeah.
And it's another thing to be like, look, here she is. People are watching and enjoying these videos right now. And then you're curious, like my kids are, to watch many of them and to get the stories and have those live on. I don't think they'd certainly be precious to us and our family, but I don't think they would be as big, if not for this. And that's been a really great benefit, personally, to have this live on through my children now, and then hopefully their children, and so on. So
yeah, in our home dining area, we have all of our, it's kind of like all of the relatives that have been over the years, and great grandparents, and they all just kind of watch, and we could tell stories about them, or what we know of the stories, but you have it documented. So but I think just kind of food and family stories just really go together. So
what you said is so important, because my grandmother was, my dad used to call her a raconteur, not a storyteller. So I guess the difference is a raconteur is, and maybe somebody knows this better than me, is like a storyteller who's constantly improving upon their story, like taking the same stories. And she would do that. She would tell the same stories over and over and over. And they always like be just a little bit different, not like absurdly different, but, like refined. And through her storytelling, I know a huge history of my family. Whether or not that's 100% true, I don't know. But it is really important. Like, even if you don't have the videos, what you have from your grandmother, you can teach your children about those stories. And what made her such a good storyteller is, even if it was a mundane thing or a depressing part of her life, she found a way to make it a story, not just a retelling of a fact that happened to her, a story. It had life. And I think if we can find that in other people, then we don't, the videos are great, but we can do it. We can keep our legacies alive through these stories, as long as they're stories, they're good. They have a little bit of myth to them, for a better word.
Yeah. So the story, I forget the one where I think one of her friends was taking stuff out of the garden during the Depression. That happened so many years ago, but so that story's been refined over.
There's no doubt about it. My grandmother and me, we are Sicilians. We're not strictly Italians. An Italian would say it's part of Italy, but a Sicilian would say no, it's not. And Sicilians do not forget. If somebody wronged them, they'll carry that with them forever. So.
They'll call them out on a YouTube video decades later. So.
I noticed if she's still alive.
I always like that one because it reminded. I mean, my grandma, at least on the Puerto Rican side, I have a Swedish grandma too, and she wouldn't have called someone out, but my Puerto Rican grandma definitely, totally would have. So
Yeah.
I always got a kick out of that one. Again, their comments are just coming in. Thank you so much for everyone. If you're just tuning in now, we're talking to Chris from Great Depression Cooking. He put all of this together. So because a lot of us have seen Clara, we've study the recipes. If Chris hadn't have done that first step and taken the time to really document his grandma and share it with the world, we wouldn't, a lot of us wouldn't know about the poor man's dinner and the pasta and peas and all of these wonderful stories that we've gotten through Nana Clara. So if you're not already subscribed, go and subscribe to Great Depression Cooking. Also go to welcometoclaraskitchen.com. You could get both the book and the DVD. I have the book and it's been so inspired by it. And I based my garden off of it. I base a lot of our grocery shopping based off of the recipes that are included here and the stories that they tell as well. So, and you could also go to Amazon to pick up the book now. So click those links in the description box if you haven't already. So I want to do maybe a couple rapid fire questions as they're coming in. And then I wanted to also talk about, you documented all of this, over a decade ago now, and now you're doing all these, the things that you're doing right now are pretty amazing on the artificial intelligence, on Bitcoin, working with Wired and all sorts of things. I wanted to get to that too, and maybe tie it back into Nana as well. So maybe we could do
tying the Great Depression into I'm ready.
Cool. Let's do it. So cool. So here's one from EK. What did Clara's parents do for money during the Depression?
Yeah, so it was Joe and Joe, Giuseppe and Giuseppina. They were Bonfantis, Sicilians. Bonfanti means good soldier, good infantry. And Joe came over, so they left Sicily because there was a famine, there were too many kids and not enough, plates. So he and his two sisters actually went to Tunis first because they thought that would be better. And then eventually they sort of like teamed up with like each other's spouses, and they got enough money together and sailed across the Atlantic and came to the US, eventually ending up in Melrose Park, Chicago. And my great-grandfather was a laborer. He did, construction. He built their own house, and, built other houses. And then he, did field work. It was a tough existence. It was a really tough time to come to the United States. When it's not your home country, you don't speak the language well. So he just did what he could. And then when my Nana was in her teens, she had to help out. And so she ended up she was the breadwinner in the family. She worked in various factories with her brother. She worked for Hostess making Twinkies and fighting off tarantulas that would jump out of the banana crates. And then she was a nanny. She did all these jobs to help bring money to the family. And that, and then by the time the 40s came around, everybody was sort of making money, enough to be happy. And, she started to have a little bit more of a glamorous life, I guess. But it was hard. It was really hard. She recalls walking from Melrose Park to downtown Chicago, which is X amount of miles. It's not close. Mm-hmm. And stopped at every factory along the way, asking for work, and walked back home empty-handed. It was a rough time. And that's why they would take burdock home or mushrooms and eat, because that's what you got. Occasionally her father would work the fields and earn a sack of onions or a sack of potatoes. That was his day's wage. So it was tough. Yeah, it was really tough for them.
Yeah, it's in today's time, you kind of forget or maybe a lot of the younger generation has forgotten how rough it was during that time.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that it's still happening. It's not happening to you or I. We're fortunate, but it's still out there, it's still happening. And so if you see somebody, just realize that their journey could be really a lot different than yours, you know. And growing up, I knew that. I knew that our neighbors weren't the same. You know, we're not all on the same journey, and you should really appreciate, respect that, and help where you can.
Yeah. A lot of these are just kind of general statements over here, but this is, are you a fan of Walton's TV series, which shows life during the Depression? I haven't seen that myself.
No, I'm going to watch that though. Where is that?
Yeah. Prepared Sense, let us know where that is and we'll check it out. So a lot of these are just general comments coming in. I like this one from Sean. How many kids get to say that their great grandmother was and still is a famous YouTuber? That's
Not many.
Not too many.
You know, like 30 years, yeah, you know, like
yeah.
Everybody's grandmother was a famous YouTuber, but in this moment, yeah, not many.
Yeah, that's legendary. I like this one. Chickens, bulk potatoes, flour, foraging. Clara was the OG prepper. Which, and I think a lot, like my grandparents, I think they were, going back to the preparedness thing, they were probably considered preppers, but they didn't really call it that. That was just how you lived back then. So
surviving, they're survivors, you know.
Yes, survivors. So, but yeah, I agree that Clara was the OG prepper for sure. Totally. A lot of Sicilian comments coming in from folks, and
how's this Clara?
Clara would give anyone that wronged her the Sicilian eye. That's that's good. Let's go. Let's see. Just wonderful. All these great comments coming in.
Great. That's a great one.
I make peppers and eggs often thanks to Clara. This is wonderful. We all need to know and love our elders and where they came from. Thank you both for this. Love you from.
That's beautiful. That's
I love the cookbook. Got the first edition. I gotta, folks. I'm probably not gonna be able to get to all the comments here, but these are just wonderful. So thank you. Keep leaving them. Keep posting them there. And after this video finishes processing, you also leave the comments in the comment section. Let us know what your favorite recipes are, because I love trying all of them. I think they're awesome. So Clara and I share the same birth date of 8/18. I love hearing their stories.
Nice.
What was a Clara story you could not believe you were getting on film?
Oh. There's some that didn't make the cut, you know. You know, things were different back then, you know. Some secrets are best left secret.
Okay. Okay.
You know, like she like I said, she held on to things, and things I was just like, okay, we'll just leave that there.
Yeah. Yeah, I know as a YouTuber that like a small percentage of what actually goes on YouTube, that's just a small percentage of the filming. There's a whole bunch of stuff that didn't make the cut for various reasons. And now I imagine with the stuff you're doing now with the Bitcoin stuff and everything, that it's even more like that. People are talking about the tarantulas coming in.
Yeah. It was like what was that? It's like I Love Lucy gone wrong, you know.
Very interesting. Surprised me now that I'm seeing that the concept of learning from our great grandparents isn't more of a thing in the prepper community. Very cool.
Yeah, it should be right. You'd think, you know, like it should be important for prepping. You know, prep those memories. You know, but those.
Yeah. You know. Yeah, it's a form of preparedness. I think is preparing the next generation.
If you're stuck somewhere, you're not just going to be eating MREs. You need to pass the time. So it's good to know your history.
So we have a few minutes left, and I wanted to kind of fast forward to the present day, as far, because you're doing all sorts of stuff right now. Again, I took a long shot just saying, hey, I wonder if you would actually talk to me about the cooking and the preparedness and all of that stuff. You're doing some huge projects though for the artificial intelligence and the banking for Bitcoin. I was wanted to talk a little bit about the Bitcoin. I know you said it was kind of a touchy subject, but we start talking about that and then the AI stuff. And
yeah, I mean, I'm not a storyteller like my grandmother. I'm a filmmaker. I wish I had her skills of just spinning a great story. No cameras, just doing it. But I'm in love with history, clearly. And when cryptocurrency and Bitcoin started to happen, it started I noticed it in 2012. It was sustaining, it was going up, and I thought it was a super interesting thing. And I said, well, instead of just waiting for the history to happen, let me be there as a witness to the history as it's happening. So I got my camera and I started filming, and there was a really burgeoning cryptocurrency scene here in New York City. So I sort of embedded myself in film for years, and came out of it with the documentary Banking on Bitcoin, which is turned out to be a very enduring thing. You know, it keeps coming up in the news, and I've been, you know, still very much keeping to be a part of the story. And yeah, there it is. And I didn't get my grandmother in it, but I got my mom in the film. So, you know, I thought that was really important. I thought my challenge here is, it's such a complicated thing. If I can't get my mom to understand what Bitcoin is, then I can't make a film about it. So I kind of like, my mom was a teacher, second grade teacher, and she, it didn't make the cut, but I had her assign a lesson on Bitcoin for the kids, and they all went home and researched it and came back with like these reports on these second graders. It was very cute. Maybe someday I'll get the outtakes of that. And some of them are really, really smart, like really simple ways to explain what cryptocurrency is. So yeah, it was a really exciting time to be a part of that.
I'm gonna put a link in the chat room, so folks. I have the link in the description box, but it's also going to be in the chat room if you want to. Make sure you check out the banking for Bitcoin, and that's Bitcoin's a thing that I'm just now getting into. I feel like I'm real late in the game, but that I talked to folks, they said, "Well, you're never too late. You're not too late to jump in." So that's what I'm trying to focus on now. And
have staying power for sure.
Yeah, and for me, it's kind of goes back to 2008, 2009, where I was worried about economic stuff, and now the present day, I'm also kind of worried about the stability of things. And so, back in 2008, 2009, I started getting into prepping, and now I'm in 2020, 2021, getting into, you know, kind of the financial protection and sustainability, I guess, of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
Right. Yeah, for the prepper community, it's been really important because gold was always the preppers' currency, right? And it was funny, like after the Great Depression cooking, finding a lot of those same people in the Bitcoin world, you know, with the same philosophy or concerns, and that does form a big backbone of what Bitcoin is this idea of having a money that's untethered from a government, so it can have its own store of value, and also being deflationary instead of inflationary. I don't know how do you want to get into this, but you know, having something like gold where there's a limited supply, you can't just print more gold, right? Same thing with Bitcoin. You can't print more Bitcoin. There's a limit to what can be made. Yeah. And so that attracts, you know, Austrian economic people and preppers and just everyday people. You know, there's a lot to it. You know, is it perfect? No, not at all. But is it more perfect than some other things? For sure. So you're going to start to see, I think, a migration from the gold bugs to the crypto bugs. I mean, we've seen it. We'll continue to see it.
Yeah, we got in the preparedness community, we talk about certain groups as being prepper adjacent, and I think the folks that are into cryptocurrency stuff, we call it prepper adjacent because it aligns to a lot of the thinking in the preparedness community with self-reliance and being a little bit off grid with and those kind of things. So, and same with precious metals with gold and silver, which are all things I'm getting back more into again lately. There was a question over here from the Apex Preppers. Do you have any film projects coming up that you can talk about? And I think we talked a little bit about in relation to the last one.
Yeah.
Is this your mom here, by the way? In the sorry, I have this playing over here before.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's Nancy. That's her posse right there.
That's the posse. Okay.
Yeah, and they all knew Nana. Those are like good old friends. Yeah.
Sorry, I had the other screen going on, and okay, there we go.
Yeah, cool. I knew I was going to get magic with those three together. They're great. And it was so funny because at that time, and the Wall Street Journal had just put out this huge article about cryptocurrency. I had no idea it was happening. It was totally serendipitous, and the woman on the right's husband came in with the article. This is magic. So yeah, they're fantastic. And the questions they ask are the questions that I think, you know, whenever you're tackling a big, you know, smart subject, you don't want to ask dumb questions. But you need to ask. That's the curiosity. Like as a filmmaker, I'm always asking the dumb questions because I want to know, and I want to be able to translate that for all of us, not just for some elite person to understand. I want to understand it. I want you to understand it. And this is actually these two guys right here are the authors of that Wall Street Journal article, which was kind of funny. I've become friends with them. And yes, I am working on another cryptocurrency film. Where it's called The Search for Satoshi. Satoshi Nakamoto is this mysterious creator of Bitcoin who isn't a real person. It's just a made up name that this person used because they were afraid that the government was going to capture them. But I think, as a historian, if we don't know the history of things, then we're not doing our jobs. And, that there's this unidentified person who created this $1 trillion industry, and we don't know who they are in this age where we know everything about everyone. That's crazy. Yeah. So it's taken me on some crazy twists and turns. And I hope to have that out before too long. And whether or not I find Satoshi, I think it's really important for the foundation of knowing where this came from, what ideas it came from, where it's going, and like who's following it and why. So that's been a project I've been chipping away at for years now.
I think that's super exciting for me, and I know a lot of the folks that I talk with regard to the crypto stuff would really love that too. So hopefully that comes to fruition. I'm super excited about that. So
thank you.
And then most recently you did the stuff for Wired, where you produced the machine learning.
Yeah, I've done a few like I guess more commercial things with Wired, and they came to me with this idea of just doing an investigation on where artificial intelligence is right now. Like, is it really as far as some people are saying it, or is it, closer than some others are saying? And so I actually was up in your neck of the woods here for some of this, talking to older folks about technology. I think that's a really great way to understand, to strip it bare and find out what works with it. We can all be super smart, but really practically, how is it being used, and who does it benefit? So this was a really fun project to work on, and we premiered at Cannes in France. So it was a pretty cool film.
Yeah, when I was watching this particular segment of the film, with this older man that's doing the virtual reality stuff, I imagine that because you filmed your grandma probably a decade before, and probably brought some memories back of the filming process for that as well. But now with much nice cameras, and production is like super pro, and the other one's super pro too. But
I guess I've always, I don't know, like people say like you're an old soul, or like I've always felt comfortable around all ages. I think, and maybe that's just, growing up, having your grandmother be a part of your life. I feel very comfortable around older people. And I know that, like, it's not, I think some people think of age as a monolithic thing. If you're a millennial, you're like this. If you're a, octogenarian, you're like that. You're not, like there are really cool 80-year-olds and really horrible 80-year-olds, we're not monolithic by age, so I think being able to try to commune with people of all ages is super important, younger and older. So
what would Clara have done in this virtual reality thing that we see here on this? How would she have liked that?
Well, yeah, Nana was not a techie by any stretch of the imagination. I guess you'd call her a Luddite. She thought YouTube was a channel on cable that she didn't get. It's constantly trying to explain what a DVD was, or what email was. Like I'd print out the comments that she would get for YouTube, because it was just easier for her to read them, and she loved reading them, and the emails I printed out too. Not a techie. I don't think you'd see her in a VR helmet or anything.
Might not have liked that. A couple of other questions just wanted to get to really quick. This is kind of going back to some of the. Are you planning on making another cookbook with more of her recipes, or is it kind of the book?
I'm happy with what we did. The book is great. We really, here it is. I use it all the time. It's, for me, it's like maybe more valuable than for anybody else who has it, because I can, I know them so well, but I don't fully remember everything. So I'm like, okay, what was that? 3 eggs? Okay. I don't know, like the idea of doing it without her, I don't, we have other recipes. Her Italian recipes are great, but without her, I don't know. I couldn't make them the way she makes them, you know, so I couldn't, I don't feel comfortable.
Yeah, I was always kind of wondering if, like, of because we were big fans of the Blue Apron and having those single sheets
Mhm.
with the photos and then the
Yeah,
fancy things like that. I was kind of, oh man, it'd be really cool
yeah,
to have
that'd be cool. Yeah, I mean,
A
I don't
Claire's Kitchen Blue Apron sheet.
yeah, maybe I'll just scan them all and put them online. I started doing that on the website. I put up a couple of recipes just because I felt like, you know, like not everybody can get the cookbook is so expensive. You know, like it's not under my control, you know, like the whatever Amazon sets it to. You know, when I made the DVDs, I kept them like at cost.
Yeah.
So people could just buy them. Like the idea was not everybody can get onto YouTube back then, you know, now
Mhm.
I don't think anybody has, not many people have DVD players. But back then, not many people had YouTube.
Yeah.
So that was the idea behind that. And yeah, I think the book shouldn't be that expensive. You know, I think it should be cheaper. But maybe yeah, and that's why I started putting some of the recipes online so people can just have them. But yeah,
When
maybe
did you know you were going to do the book? Because I thought that the videos came first before the book.
yeah,
Is that kind of the
yeah, that's
order?
right. Yeah.
And then once you saw, man, she's a natural, we got to do a book. Is that how it
I
kind of
mean,
went?
well, the
Or?
thing was, everybody wanted her on a TV show, like
Yeah.
at the time when Jay Leno was still around, he was going to fly her out because he's selling. He's like, "I'll treat her so well." He called, like it wasn't his person. He called
Yeah.
to say, "I love Clara. I want her on my show," and all this.
Wow.
It was just like she wasn't up for it, you know. And we didn't want to push Nana into like some weird celebrity thing that you know, she wasn't comfortable with.
Yeah.
So book was a much better option, you know. And it was, my wife, as I said, is a photographer, so she did the photos. I, you know, wrote it with her and tested everything and got all the stories. You know, so it was a very intimate thing. I was with my grandmother for 2 months as a job, you know, like
Yeah.
that was a blessing more than, you know, us going to into a TV show to talk about it. And like, you know, like the things that, you know, it was just kind of gross, I thought, because they were like, oh, you know, like, can she stand, you know, because we're going to like have her wait for a half an hour before. And I was just like, no,
Yeah.
this is my grandmother. Like,
Yeah.
no, she's not going to do that. You know, so the cookbook was a much better way of giving that, you know, that, and I think it's more lasting than some TV show appearance. You know, I think having
Totally.
her words, and we got more of her stories. I learned so much more through that process. It was just a wonderful, wonderful experience, and the publisher was great and all that. So yeah, they were very kind.
Yeah.
Actually, the funny story. I mean, it is a funny story. We tell this story all the time. So she did come to New York when the book came out, and the publisher, the guy who runs St. Martin's Press, the book thing, really wanted to meet her because he had an aunt who was just like Nana, and like he like, I've got to make the book because and all this, and so he's so excited to meet her, and he took us to I think it's Carmine's. It's an Italian restaurant in Manhattan near like 42nd Street. And it's very nice. And it was like, I think it was like end of November, December. So it was like Christmassy time, and the lights were twinkling. And she was so, my wife and I took her to Rockefeller Center. She'd always wanted to see the Christmas tree. And the night before, and she stayed out late, and she was just like, you know, in heaven. It was amazing. Just like having that experience with her. And so we're at this restaurant, Carmine's, and the chef comes out, and he's like, "Anything you want, Clara?" You know, like, and you know, like she ordered, I forget what she ordered, but she like, you know, like she was having a great time. She had a glass of wine. You know, everything was like pretty beautiful and magical, and people were coming by and saying hi, like, "Oh, I'm the assistant. I helped this part of the book. I did this," and everybody was just like, and she was, you know, like she was floored, you know. And so just before dessert comes out, she goes silent. She's just there sitting in her seat. Her eyes are still open, and she's not moving. And we're in a panic. We're like, no, what happened? Was it the food? What happened? And there was a doctor at the table next to ours, and he came over and he's taking her pulse. And he's like, I think she's dead. I think she died. And they call the ambulance. And this is all true. And she lived many years past this. Okay. I don't want this to be a grim story. And so they this is, I swear to God, this is true. The waiter comes by, she must have ordered an espresso, and he comes by, he puts it right in front of her, and she leans in, sniffs it, drinks it, right back. Fucking chatting.
Wow.
We all thought she was, and it was like, I'll never forget it, because there was that song from the Peanuts Christmas special, you know, like Christmas time.
Yeah, Christmas time's here.
It was just this, like, it felt like this. I lost my mom, my grandmother. I lost her, and
Wow.
but that espresso brought her back to life.
The coffee brought her back. Wow, that's an amazing story. That'd be scary too, but
it was very scary.
I guess the sense of smell and that coffee really
or maybe,
does something for
maybe it
me.
was just performance art. I don't know.
She's trolling the restaurant, maybe. There's comments are still coming in. Everyone's like, keep the stream going, Cliff. We'll do our best though. So I know it's good because you're on East Coast time, so it's late. There's during your college years, did you see your grandma often? You filmed a lot of it. I kind of got the impression that it was happening.
Yeah, I want to say I was out of college. I was working for Viacom, which is like MTV at the time, and I was doing like these silly shows. I did the show called Made. It was like where there would be like a high schooler, and they would be like, I want to be a football player, but I weigh 90 pounds, and they'd like pair them up with a football coach. And so I was like doing these like interviews, like on the fly interviews with all these like kids and, you know, coaches and things like that. And I was primed for the show, you know, for doing a show with Nana. I was like, I know the bare minimum I need to get to like put this together, so I won't take up all your time, Nana. So it was like, that was also kind of serendipitous at that time. I was just doing these like cheaply made TV show things, and that really helped. But I definitely had to ask Nana when I was in college. I didn't go to school too far from home, so I was able to, like, you know, Thanksgiving time, Christmas, and we would all. It wasn't just, I mean, like Nana and I weren't alone. My sister and my two brothers, we were like always over there. You know, we had to like share Nana because we all just like would end up. You could walk from my mom's house to my grandmother's house, so we'd just like show up, and it would be like, oh, awkward. John's here. I guess my time is half an hour.
Yeah.
But like we would just all hang out, you know. So yeah, I saw her often, but you know, I was in college too. So, but you know, it was like come back, and you know, if you have a new girlfriend, you bring her back. Sure, off to Nana.
Yeah. and did she have to give the stamp of approval, or did the girlfriend not make it then?
Yeah,
because my grandma was the same way. Was that like that?
You know, she was a Catholic, traditional. I don't know if it's about the religion or about the rules, but you know, those things were important to her.
Yeah, when I was before I got married, I was dating, and I would bring my girlfriends over, and they'd have to get the stamp of approval from Mama, from my grandma, and again, she was the Puerto Rican grandma, and sometimes she made some food that it looked a little funny to people that weren't used to that, like pasteles, kind of look like almost like, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's basically a Puerto Rican tamale, but sometimes it can look like almost like a brown cow tongue type thing. And I had one girlfriend that I brought there. She didn't want to eat it because it freaked her out, and it was like that relationship did not work out. And so with my wife of today, when we were dating, we went over to Mama's. I'm like, whatever she puts in front of you, eat it. You have to eat it. So and then she ate it, and then my grandma really loved talking to my wife, and same with my grandpa too. But that was the ultimate test for all of my cousins and everything too. We'd have to bring our whoever we were dating over, and they had to get the stamp of approval.
It certainly wasn't as bad as it was for my mom. You know, like she, you know, like
yeah,
it's harder for her meeting her sons. You know, the approval of the mom.
Yeah. There's a question here. Are there any more outtakes planned for Clara videos or Clara shorts? I kind of like the idea of the short video.
You know, I have always wanted to tell the story of her meeting my grandfather, because it's one of these like improbable stories. You know, they met. He was he sang in the Vatican choir, which was a big deal in his day, and he was on a world tour singing in like an altar boy outfit. You know? that's what was the bee's knees back then. And he was in Chicago where she was living, and she went to she went to the concert because her friend was dating this guy who she wasn't supposed to be dating. So she was kind of there as like, like, hey, we're double dating, even though she didn't have a date. And it rained. It was in Soldiers Field, which is where the Bears play.
Yep.
And so everybody took cover under the awnings. And there was my grandfather and there was my grandmother, and they made eyes, and the rest is history. And so he like corresponded, over the ocean with her, and finally she went to Italy and they got married. But it's a really nice story, and I thought maybe someday I'll just like put that together. It has nothing to do with food, so I don't know if people care. But there's that, and then we had one last video that we kind of joked we'd do, and she was 100.
Yeah, the one final special meal is.
Well, she makes a Manhattan. Like that was her favorite mixed drink.
That's a good drink.
Yeah. And I got her one in Manhattan. So that was like I came through for her there. Celebrate the book. Not the day she died in Carmine's restaurant. But
yeah, and people, I see a lot of comments coming in about the Carmine story.
But yeah. So if I told her, like, if we get 1 million subscribers, or we get or you hit 100, well, I'll put that out.
Yeah.
Maybe if we ever get that subscriber count out.
Well, I think a lot of people would love to see that. I know I definitely would. I see a lot of comments coming in about the espresso, espresso story. It looks like a food coma. Yep, Italians must have their coffee after eating.
But she was like, I did it in the afternoon with Clara, where she arm wrestles my brother Mark, and she could really win.
Wow.
But she had like the coldest like hands, and like you could never find a pulse on her. How? She's like titanium. She's like the Terminator. She's
best chat I've heard. This is people just love this. I loved all our vids. Been watching them all. Got me through some tough times.
It's the same for me. I whenever I'm feeling down, like I watch Nana, and she's medicine.
Yeah, again, like for me, like I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know it's late, but especially during this past year, everyone's sheltering into place, that you could really get depressed on things, on the situations or all of that stuff. And I found that it was so uplifting watching her videos and hearing her talk, and bringing me back to my grandma, and imagining her, and admiring the work that you did, and being kind of, I wish I would have done that type stuff. But yeah, I wonder how many people your Nana helped get through the past, especially in the last year, not counting the past decade, through her stories, through her recipes, and through the whole virtual grandma aspect that you were able to capture.
I get emails from people, and they'll say just that, and it's hard for me, because it brings back. I'm grateful. I'm really that she's touching people, but it's my grandmother, and she's no longer with me. It's hard. It's like this bittersweetness to it. I love seeing her, but I dearly miss her.
On you did a video on I think it was the day that she passed, and you were telling some of the stories, and your one wish. I thought maybe we could kind of share that for people that haven't seen that. And you wanted people to go out and talk to the wise old people, and to get their stories, to hear them, and to share them. Have people reached out to you and told you how they've done those kind of things with their through that?
Yeah. That's been really, I'm grateful for people doing that, because it's good therapy for all of us, and not, of course it's good therapy for you to find out who your elders are, and what their stories were, and these preconceived notions you have about them, go away. And, but not only that you can share that, that you become part of that story. I think it's really important. You don't just take, you can give back. I think that's important.
Well, Chris, I appreciate you just spending time to talk with a prepper channel about your Nana, and about the stuff that you're doing. And I just can't thank you enough for what you've done for the world. I mean, during rough times over the past decade, how many people that you're through the chronicles that you documented, on how many people it's impacted, how it's improved their lives. It's improved my gardening skills and my shopping skills. And I'm just as a fellow grandson of sorry.
She just needed a megaphone, and I'm glad that I was able to provide that. But she, her voice is that beacon. So I'm glad that people are around to receive that.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you for doing what you've done for everyone, and by documenting that and sharing your grandma, who's one of the greatest grandmas in history, I think, for all the people that she's impacted. And people are loving the comments are coming in, and I think everyone kind of echoes that as well. I'm not the best with words on these kind of things, but I just appreciate it. I appreciate I especially admire what you've done as someone that makes YouTube videos on prepping stuff and what it takes to put something in there. I don't have any videos that have made people, cry when they watch it. By something that I documented 10 years later, and it's like the stuff that you've documented is resonating with people today at times where they really need it. And I just want to thank you for sharing your grandma with us. Well, cool. Any I don't know, any kind of final words?
Thank you so much for having me. I love your channel. I was watching before we got on, I was watching you did the Sangen radio, which was kind of beautiful. My grandfather, Nana's husband, my Nono, loved those like little portable radios, and so that brought me back. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I love gadgets and techie stuff and all of that. So unplugged
radio.
Very cool. Well, thank you. People are just saying that love Clara. Hit the like. Yeah, if you guys like this video, make sure you hit the like button. It helps with the algorithms, and the more that the algorithms like this type of video, the more that people will come over and they'll watch this and they'll subscribe to Great Depression Cooking. We'd want to get Great Depression Cooking to 1 million subscribers so we could get that special video with the story. Or yes, I think that's the goal. Yeah. So guys, let's see what we could do for this. We have to do this over time. So Elizabeth's saying thank you. I could probably just have after the show and just click the comments from folks. But yeah. I guess on that note, again, thanks for everything that you've done, folks. If you like this talk with Chris, make sure you subscribe over to Great Depression Cooking and watch all of the videos. Rewatch them. If you're having a rough day, watch the videos. Clara's going to make you in a better mood, no matter what's happening. So go over there. Make sure that you go over to the website as well, to welcometoclaraskitchen.com. You can get the DVD, and you can also get the book. The book is available on Amazon. Also, make sure that you check out Chris's current work on the banking on Bitcoin, which is awesome, and because I'm into Bitcoin right now. And then also the machine learning, living in the age of AI, which is a Wired film, which Chris produced that as well. So Chris, thank you so much for taking the time for talking with us. So.
Appreciate it.
All right, folks, on that, stay tuned for more videos. If you like these type of videos, subscribe to the channel and smash the like button, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.